I always find it amusing that the first day or two of the seminar, you guys are all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed having breakfast. And I almost forgot my mom this morning. And then by today, or yesterday, there's less people down for breakfast, or they're not, they don't eat a full breakfast, etc., etc. Now, why is it, in your humble opinion, in your little pea brains, jellyfish brains, do you think that as the seminar wears on, there's less people down for breakfast?
Because no one's used to that work ethic. No one's used to that work ethic.
Yes. Because you're all lazy cunts. Even though Hans thinks he's a man, a real fucking man, he's a lazy cunt. And he comes from an industry, it's hard to be a lazy cunt. But compared to those guys, you guys don't even work. And for the YouTubers, that's the influencers. I'm not even talking about my Hall of Fame. They work, you know, as I quoted Ted Turner yesterday. He said, you can get so much more done in a 24-hour day. I slept in the office the first 20 years of my business when I started CNN. And he reiterated that on this, just a few months ago, on his 75th birthday. They had a special on CNN. Why would they have a special on him on CNN? I wonder why. But anyway, they had with Wolf Blitzer. I like Wolf Blitzer. And he said, you can get so much more done. And of course, I can relate to that. But, and this work ethic, you know, you're not working 20 hours a day here. You're not even working 18 hours a day. And one of the things that I also find amusing in the weekly reports, in the beginning, some of you, the ones that are, you know, try to be as candid as you can, as honest as you can, you relate, I'm not used to these long hours, I get tired. Some of you are going to start getting sick, ill, because your body can't keep up with the pace, which is my experience with these 21 years that I've been doing this. And because even though, I mean, you know, you're all, and for those of you that are working on your own businesses, you know, you're trying to do what you think heretofore as the best you could. You now know it's not the best you could, but up until you got here, it's the best you thought. And it's not. And which ones do you think get ill first? I mean, you're going to get colds, you're going to get sore throats, you know, which group do you think? I mean, age-wise.
Non-entrepreneurs?
Huh?
Oh, age-wise.
Age-wise.
Oh, the younger people.
The young guys, you're right. The young guys are the ones that crack. The young guys. The guys in their 20s are the ones that get fucking sick. Some of the old geezers that can draw back in the past. They can grasp themselves by the testicles and rip themselves, suck up their pantyhose from the days far gone by. Don't normally get ill. But the kids, sore throats, we're on the conference calls, the monthly conference calls, sniffles, colds. It's quite amusing to me. It's quite amusing to me. And whereas the kids are supposed to be the stronger. Okay, they're stronger physically, but they're not stronger up here. They're not stronger up here. We have quite a big operation in Asia, in the Philippines. We had one in China too, until a couple of years ago. The Philippines is the only country that I know of, and maybe it's the same in Indonesia, where diarrhea is a reason for not coming to work. Diarrhea. Headache is not a reason for not coming to work. Fucking headache.
Sounds like Sweden.
Yeah?
Grandmas.
Huh?
Grandmas.
Yeah.
All 5 of them.
Yeah. Or their grandmother died, the 5th one. We're having a management meeting. I said, where's so-and-so? And they said, oh, his wife had a baby. Okay. And then another manager meeting a few weeks later, where's so-and-so? His mother died. Okay. Then this is when I first got there. Then we look into it. One, he's not married. He's not married. And two, his mother died at birth, his birth. So, but headaches, diarrhea, and when somebody goes to the hospital, when a father goes to the hospital, everybody goes to the hospital. So you'll see a guy there who's, allegedly sick, and there's 10, 12, 14 people with him. That is so bullshit. And but there's a lot of cultures, and I realize that a lot of cultures are very supportive of the matriarch or the patriarch of the family. I understand all that. But and I've asked parents, do you need all these people? They don't, Dad. I don't. But some of them say candidly, because if I should die, they want me to know that I saw them there supporting me, so I shouldn't change my will. And so when I see you guys not come down to breakfast, or it's quite amusing. Now, I'm the one that should be fucking tired, not you. I'm the one screaming and yelling, and my voice starts to go about this time a little bit, and my voice has changed a little since the first day. But I always get a kick out of it, and I'm talking to the girls in the kitchen. Yesterday I was asking, I came down about 25, until I figured out I had a big stain on my suit, 25 after 7, before I went back up and changed again. And there weren't but a couple of people having breakfast, and then the first morning, I think you were all there, having breakfast and chit-chatting and talking, and I hope you weren't networking and shit. I pray to Allah you weren't networking. But that's the difference. That's the difference. By the end of the year, your work ethic will be significantly more. And after lunch, somebody remind me to, I want to go talk a little bit about the weekly report. But the weekly reports come in different formats. For you guys that are spreadsheeters, they put it in a spreadsheet. But it's quite copious and asks a lot of questions. But the amount of information I want isn't War and Peace. War and Peace meaning, volumes. And I got this technique, which Klaus also uses. Speaking of Klaus, how was it watching Klaus last night?
Good.
Boring.
Boring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very,
Well, he speaks in a monotone. He's actually a pretty good public speaker. He's much better public speaker than he was 15 years ago, that's for sure. But he's a good public speaker. He's a good public speaker.
He covered a lot. There was a lot in there.
She covered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
He's a smart guy. And we go through some of the slides of the and because when he's mentioned it to the seminar group a year ago, then of course the biographers in the audience, like Pablo, went and Googled the material that he uses. He basically uses a military format. And that military format is what I learned in NATO in the 60s. And and if you can't explain it on one page, then either you don't understand it, and you certainly aren't going to be able to manage it. And so the weekly reports are based on a 1 week format, as I told you. What did you do this week? What are you doing next week? Problems and challenges. And we'll talk more about it after lunch today. But Klaus is an extraordinary good project manager at the 60,000 foot level, Concord. He's looking down at Concord because when you have that many employees that he has and that he's been in charge of since he was at Siemens, it's a different kind of project management. He's not wondering whether Jeff came to work on time, and he gives his managers a lot of latitude. But as he said, he tries to get people, and not just at Siemens, but all the big companies, they want people to be able to go the extra mile. Extra mile meaning that you don't have to tell them to do stuff. Now, I learned a long time ago World-class managers, or even good managers, you don't have to manage. You don't have any of those. World-class managers, I'm gonna say it again because y'all look at me funny. World-class managers, you don't have to manage. They know what to do. And they do it. And they know how to produce results. That's who you want on your bus. And when you bring people on the bus that can't do that, then you gotta exit them off the bus. You know, just like in the movies, the bus guy puts the brake on and he opens the door, and you gotta exit him. The hardest thing in the beginning will be to exit people off the bus. Because for a number of reasons, but the most of which, the two biggest are, one, you have to admit you made a mistake. And two, what are people gonna think? So, and I've said it many, many times, and I believe I learned this from Jack Welch, it's not the people that you terminate that kill your business, it's the people you don't terminate that kill your business. And that's why it's so difficult to be in business with your wife, your husband, your brother, your cousins, etc. Because in the core of your body, the core of your being, somewhere somebody told you you should be nicer to your blood.
It sounds like the army. I watched the Navy SEALs on Netflix before I came here, and when they had like 300 people the first day, and they had like 100 people the next week, they asked.
Yeah.
Go through.
Yeah. And Navy SEALs is tough, but it's not as tough as it used to be, because you can go home on the weekends now, which is a little difficult for me to swallow. But but your management style is going to be nothing like the military or Navy SEAL. Now, if some of you should gravitate towards that, that'd be great. That'd be terrific. That's going to make our job a lot easier. And some of you that have been closet 13th century managers, you're going to love this. You know, really down deep inside, you always wanted to cut their fucking hand off when they stole, but you know you can't. Well, we still don't cut their hand off when they steal, but we certainly throw them out the fucking door. And so, but there's not too many closet managers like that. And that's why when I give the military talks on, used to be on webinars, etc., I start with 800 people. By the time I'm done, I'm down to 40 or 50. And that one that you like about commitment, where people say I go psycho on, from 2010, I started with a whole bunch and I finished with 50. And I got, I won't say I got hate mail, but I got remarks. Well, if you have to be a psychopath like that, I don't want to be a high performance person. If you have to be a psychopath like that and take decisions, you can always tell if somebody's English. You don't take decisions, but English people say they take a decision. Okay. I have to take decisions like that, then I want to stay poor. And but you know, that's a choice you'll have to make going down the road. Okay, last night we did goals, right? Okay. We're not going to do the goals on YouTube, but I want to ask you some general questions. Okay. What was the biggest thing that you learned, if you learned anything, when you started putting down your goals? Because the people that I've talked to so far, in the private time, just about everybody has said, one thing, my goals are too low in the papers that you have. Okay, so, and I told you the first day or the first night that you can look at it a couple ways, but just adding zeros. But it's a combination of adding zeros, or knots as they have to say here, and shortening the time frame. That's the simple lesson in goal setting.
I thought you said no time frame, so as soon as...
No, I understand that, but you guys, before you got here, maybe you didn't because you know what I say, is normally you put time frame down. Time frame in some, 5 million or 500,000, and now, it should be 50 million or...
Don't you have to for the summary, executive summary stuff? Though?
Pardon?
Don't you have to for
Those
the
aren't
summary
goals.
stuff,
If you want to be the leading company in whatever industry it is on the planet, you know, we will dominate the planet in such and such. Like when Bill Gates started Microsoft, I don't remember the exact words, but we want to put a computer in every house in America. He said something like that. And he said in a recent interview when he was with Warren Buffett, he said, I should have said, I want to put a computer in every home in the world. See? He said, now one would think in the 70s when he started the company, a computer in everybody's house is a pretty bodacious goal. Well, it's just about, 20 years ago he just about did that. So he should have said, I want to put one in every home on the planet. Or he should have said, wherever anybody inhabits on the solar system. But words like, I want to dominate the industry. So, what any general feeling when working on your goals?
One point.
Yes.
I was thinking about how to reach the goal.
Well, when
Yeah.
you start thinking, it's normally a problem for the group. So
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, before I came here, I always thinking about how to reach there. But after the first 2 days, I stopped thinking of how.
It's not the how.
Yes, it is.
It's not even the when.
Yes.
It's the do. That's good. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. But you're not alone. Everybody thinks about the how, and that's what keeps them from doing it. Yes, Jeff.
It's getting comfortable with seeing the end and actually believing that that's a possibility, because it's so far higher than anything that I've ever done before by a long shot.
That brings up another point. This morning I only got up at 5:39. But then I thought of the two things I wanted to cover today, and I went back to sleep for 30, 40 minutes instead of getting up and writing stuff down. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and you hit upon it indirectly, so far, how would you assimilate the information that I've given you, assuming this is the one I used to cover in the 3-day or the 1-day. But in the 1-day seminars when I first started 20 years ago, they were 18 hours long, seminar, no Q&A, and with Q&A they were normally 20 to 24 hours long. I gave one in Chicago 28 hours, straight through. Because Q&A was 8 hours. We had a bunch of guys like you in the fucking audience. And you, Mr. Peña, and they weren't Muslim. But Mr. Peña, and so I wound up being in, does Chicago have a big Muslim population? I don't know, but I don't think we had any. But because the actual material you can cover in 18 hours. But what we found after the first 10 or 12 months is it was very difficult for them to assimilate. Very difficult for them to assimilate. Very few people got it. But if you had received the same information and we were at Heathrow Airport, okay? Because I used to give 3 days at Heathrow Airport a long time ago. How do you think it's different than being here and getting the same information as opposed to sitting at Heathrow Airport and spending the night in a hotel room? Well, let's just say it's the same. It's not the same information because I think of different metaphors here. I think of different. I can point over here. This happened here, etc. How do you think it would differ, or do you think it would differ?
We're more focused on ourselves here. We get breakfast and dinner, and we're in the environment. We're close to you more. We're at your home, and
We have
It's
more
more personal.
skin. Sorry, we have more skin in the game, so we have a reason to pay attention and be quiet when it needs to be.
Christopher?
Got evidence that it works.
Amen. That's why it's so much more successful here.
Reality matrix.
Correct. And Josiah is smarter than he looks. Correct. I mean, because it's, like I said, this is the perfect metaphor. Yesterday's dreams are today's realities. And today's dreams are tomorrow's realities. And people's goals that we used to do goal setting at Heathrow Airport, I gave a couple at Gatwick Airport. Actually, it was better at Gatwick Airport. I have no idea why it was better at Gatwick Airport than Heathrow Airport. The goals setting, even after the seminar, down there, don't compare to the goal setting up here. They're not even in the same universe. I mean, people believe, like you said, I mean, shit, in 17 months, and you know, he was setting goals for stuff he couldn't afford, you know, and it works, you know, no different than when Henry Ford and Napoleon Hill, excuse me, Andrew Carnegie was setting goals and affirmations for stuff that, you know, there was no way that they could afford. And I have an okay education, but they had no education. I think it's funny that they turned down Wozniak and Jobs at Hewlett Packard because they didn't go to college. I think that's amusing. Hewlett Packard doesn't think it's so amusing, but I think it's amusing because for some of you have very, very good educations. A couple of you have extraordinary educations, and some of you have no education, but don't make a shit. It doesn't make any difference. The guys that are well educated, it may open a door easier to begin with, but at the end of the day, it's the proof of the pudding is in the doing, and then that's it. The guys at Siemens, and I didn't realize this, Klaus told me several years ago, you know, a lot of the guys at Siemens don't think that you went to university. Don't have any diplomas. But nobody's ever asked me in all these years, except for the first, when I interviewed, this is a good story. When I came back from the Vietnam era, and I had flunked out of university 3 times before, and we have F's and D's, they don't work towards graduation. So I basically had to repeat 4 years. I repeated and got it done in 2.5 years. I took as much as 26 units a semester, I've said that before. And I went to 2 universities simultaneously. I went to UCLA and I went to California State University Northridge campus. When I got out of school, they didn't teach you how to interview, etc. But I decided I wanted to go to work for Fortune 500 companies. So I interviewed with 2 Fortune 500 companies. I had 7 or 8 interviews with 1 Fortune 500 company, including the vice chairman. And I had 5 or 6 interviews with the other Fortune 500 company. Now, when you have that many interviews, you assume you're going to get a job offer. The vice chairman of Carnation, which is, I believe, now part of Nestle, was my last interview, and I'm sitting in there telling, yes, sir. He said, I just wanted to meet you, Mr. Peña. And he says, why? He says, we're not going to give you a job offer, but I wanted to meet you. And I said, well, first I said, you're my 7th or 8th interview, and no job offer? Now, I was a young guy. I was 25 years old. I acted like a young infantry officer. I thought I was Napoleon. And so I'm starting to drill him why, and he said, you scared everybody. And the only reason you got to the next interview is because they were so afraid that they would make a mistake by not pushing you up the line that ultimately would come back and they'd get fired. So you got to come to the vice chairman, and I'm retiring in 4 months, so you can't hurt me. So I'm the one that's telling you no. But he said, good luck to you, young man. So I walk out, and I said, what the fuck? Is this the way that, so, I come from a bureaucratic military background. Is this what corporate life's all about? Because I figured any place I went to, I'd be CEO. And I always thought the chairmen were old geezers, so, but I'd be CEO for sure. I'd be the youngest CEO of a Fortune 500 company that there ever was. That's what I thought. The next company calls me, and it's the head, they just started calling personnel human resources then. And it's the head of human resources. And he says, Dan, can I buy you a drink? Well, when he wants to buy me a drink, I know I'm not getting a job offer. So I said, this can't be 2 for 2. So I meet the guy for a drink, and he was the next Army officer from the Vietnam War, a few years older than me. He says, I think I owe it to you to tell you why you're not going to get a job offer. So we're sitting there, we're having a drink, and he said, basically told me the same story that the vice chairman of Carnation told me. This is the company, was Dunlap. And he said, you scared the shit out of everybody. And he said that I took all these tests, they give you all these tests, and this was just the beginning when they give you a lot of tests. He said, and one of our psychologists said that having Peña here would be putting like a round peg in a square hole, or a square peg in a round hole. And it would be too disruptive, etc. But they were basically all afraid as well. Now, I should have known then, well, I knew then the corporate world wasn't for me. Not because I didn't want to be in the corporate world, because I did. The corporate world didn't want me. They just flat-ass didn't want me. And some of you guys are in the corporate world, but some of you couldn't make it in the corporate world now because you've been out on your own. You don't want to listen to anybody. That's fine. Because I came straight from the military to school to, I thought, the corporate world, and just as if I had stayed in the Army. Tommy Franks, who was the general in charge of shock and awe from the Iraqi war, he's a contemporary. He and I went to OCS at the same time. We both graduated from OCS in 1967. I would have been a 4-star. There's no question in my fucking military civilian mind I would have been a 4-star general. I would have been a field marshal. I would have been a fucking whatever. So I figured I'm just going to take those talents and I'm going to go be CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And so then I went to Wall Street because they didn't give a fuck. You could be as loudmouth as long as you produced and did deals and shit. But the information that you get here is meaningful, for a few of you alluded to it, because it makes it so fucking real. Now, sometimes I think it's not such a good idea giving the seminar in the pavilion that I built, this room. Because I used to give the seminar in the castle. But just for space, etc., and this is actually more convenient. It's more conducive. You can use visual aids. We used to have visual aids in the dining room. But then we had to break it down for lunch. We had to break it. While you were having breakfast, they were putting up the slide machines and the overheads and all this, and it just became too much of a pain in the ass. And so then we built this 11 years ago. But I didn't start using it for seminars until about 5-6 years ago. But it is. And your goals change. And they will change again when you go home. Part of the reason they're going to change again when you go home, back to what I call the real world. You call it the real world. I call it the unreal world. Because that's not the way the world's supposed to be, what you're going back to. That's what people have allowed it to be. That's what the people allowed it to be. And so you amongst a lot of other people that have been through the program are changing it. Anything else about goals? That became, yes, Papa?
Well, the takeaway for me in the last couple of days that stuck out the most is before I would think about, I thought it would be irresponsible and bullshit to write down a goal that you had no clue on the details how it was going to happen.
Most people think that.
I felt it was, irresponsible and airy-fairy, but it's becoming more real, the system and the process. So I can legitimately and congruently write down a goal that I really have no clue how it's going to happen, because I trust the details will work themselves out, and I trust the system.
How did Walt Disney, who's up on that wall, how did Walt Disney, one of his goals back in the 30s when he was doing animation, etc., how did Walt Disney think that he was going to make every kid on the planet happy? Now, that's how the whole thing started. The first through animation, then through theme parks. Now that's pretty fucked up. No, I don't think it's funny. But the thought process, how is one guy who, got dropped out of school, if I remember correctly, going to make every little shithead kid, now I wouldn't have that kind of goal myself, but every little shithead kid on the planet happy. Now, he has no idea. And then he's not drawn, but he's supervising somebody drawing Daffy Duck at the time. So he didn't know, but things fall into place. Just as when we went through the gold sequence of some of the things that I've done. And then once you get used to it, success begets success. I am stunned when something I say I'm going to do doesn't happen. I'm literally stunned. Because I've been doing it a long, long time now. Now, when I was young and I was being interviewed by those Fortune 500 companies, I was stunned because I was arrogant, okay? I did this, I just finished a 4-year degree with honors in 2.5 years, went to 2 universities, took 26 units, I just went through some of the toughest military training there ever was, blah, 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 blah. I should be working here. Now, I'm not arrogant, I'm stunned because I've been so successful at it, and I've had so many people like yourself successful at it. I'm really, I'm stunned, surprised, shocked, and awed when we don't accomplish something. Okay, enough about goals. Thanks. See you guys later.